Hello Yu-Gi-Oh players, how are you today? Welcome to another episode of What a Yu-Gi-Oh player must know, and today we are going to talk about the damage step. The damage step is a very confusing step, and I'm going to try to break down this step for you. There's the battle phase, and then you declare an attack. Then there's the battle step. Then there's the damage step. And then there's a sub-step of the damage step called damage calculation. And then the monster is destroyed. And then there's the end step. So many steps. There are certain cards you can activate during the damage step, and certain cards you cannot. But, let me tell you this. There are some cards that can activate during the damage step, even though it says they can't, or it might not seem like they could. That's what I mean. There are some cards that fit the criteria to activate during the damage step, but rulings have said no. You cannot. So you should always confront a judge, talk to a judge, look up a ruling before you make assumptions about what can be activated during the damage step or not. Now, if you know your spell speed 1, 2, and 3, counter cards can always activate during the damage step. Always. Spell speed 2 spell cards that modify the defense or attack of a monster can be activated during the damage step if it directly decreases or increases the attack or defense of that monster. Now, some Yu-Gi-Oh players say, hey, can I Mystical Space Typhoon Necro Rally during the damage step to decrease my opponent's Gravekeeper monsters by 500 attack? No, because Mystical Space Typhoon on the card does not say decrease an opponent's monster attack. It has to directly decrease that monster's or increase that monster's attack or defense. Spell speed 2 cards that negate monster effects can be activated during the damage step. And like I said, there are some cards that cannot, but most can. Hey, if my opponent attacks my Penguin Soldier and it gets flipped, can I target Penguin Soldier and his monster and return it to the hand? No, because during the damage step, when Penguin Soldier was flipped up, it has been already declared that Penguin Soldier would be destroyed. Hey, can I activate equip cards during the damage step? No, because equip cards are spell speed 1. Even though they increase or decrease a monster's attack, you can't just activate it during the damage step. Because certain cards cannot be activated during the damage step, you can use this to your advantage. For example, you have Forbidden Lance in your hand. Your opponent has 3 face downs. Okay? Your opponent has a 1 face up monster on the field, and you have a monster on the field, and you go to attack. Your monster is weaker than your opponent's monster. If you attack, your opponent might be confused. What are you doing? He dies. And you can say, hey, do you have a response? And they might say no, even though they have a Dimensional Prison or Mirror Force face down. And guess what? Now they pass the attack declaration stage. So Mirror Force or Dimensional Prison cannot be activated at this time. And guess what? You can go into a damage step. Activate Lance, target that monster, they lose 800 attack, and you get to run it over without being punished by Dimensional Prison or Mirror Force, because Dimensional Prison and Mirror Force cannot be activated during the damage step. I keep seeing Yu-Gi-Oh players activate Lance before the battle phase, or Lance on that monster or opponent's monster when they declare an attack. If you do that, they can chain Mirror Force or Dimensional Prison, and guess what? Lancing was just for nothing. There are some trigger effects that can be activated during the damage step. Most trigger effects can activate during the damage step unless the card or ruling says otherwise. Optional trigger effects cannot be activated during the damage step. And some of you guys are saying, hey, what are trigger effects? If the card meets a condition to activate, it triggers. That's what a trigger effect is. For example, my beast monster was destroyed by a dark hole. And guess what? You just triggered my green baboon. Because when a beast monster is destroyed, I can special summon this from a graveyard or hand by paying 1,000 life points. Bam! You triggered that. My opponent triggered that by destroying my monster. It met the conditions to be triggered. Trigger effects have to meet a criteria to activate. Bam! And don't get this confused with conditions. For example, Cyber Dragon says, hey, if my opponent has a monster on his side of the field, I can special summon this. No, it wasn't triggered. The condition was just met. Trigger effects have conditions to be met to activate. They activate.